Welcome to the Earning Freedom Mastermind program with the Straight A Guide, continuing on trying to bring stories of inspiring people. I can tell you I connected with this young man, Michael Justice, who did a lot of time in prison, but he came back extraordinarily successfully. And he's going to tell us about how his decisions inside really influence his prospects for success. And he has had the type of success that every man in prison wants to have. He had the right attitude, he had set values, he set goals, and he made things happen. But what if we start off by, Michael, telling us a little bit about where you're from, what part of the country you're from, and what brought you into the criminal justice system?
Well, I was born in Florida. My dad was in the military, so we kind of vacillated to and from. So I think because of I'm not going to say that my choices brought me to where I was at, but I think a lot of that had to do with, military never was at one place one too long. And I think that not having the connectivity kind of caused a little strife. I did very good in school. I was an athlete, and then I got in trouble when I was 19 years old and got sentenced to the Department of Corrections to 40 years.
40 years in the Department of Corrections. And tell our audience, because as I told you from the beginning, a lot of people in our audience are serving time in high security prisons, and they're beginning lengthy sentences, and they are getting feedback from a lot of the guys on the yard. Tell us a little bit about what kind of message you received when you first went in as a 19-year-old with a sentence measured in multiple decades.
Well, I think the indoctrinated feel of prison is when you first come in, everybody says, hey, you should be, you got to be tough, you got to be hard, you got to be like your environment because, this is where you're at. And in order to survive, you've got to be, a product of your environment, so that's basically what everybody said.
I heard a lot of that also. I used to hear a lot of time that the best way to serve time in prison is to forget about the outside world and just focus on time inside. That's the type of advice that I never really paid attention to. I was always focused on preparing for success. What thoughts do you have about that message now that you've got a lot of prison time behind you and you're outside successfully? If you're talking to young guys right now who are going into the system and they're hearing that message that the best way to serve time is to forget about the outside world and just focus on inside, do you have a position on that, or can you share what thoughts you have about it?
Yeah, that's a great question because, see, there's so many people in there, and if you're not making plans for success, you're making plans for failure. And I wasted a lot of time. So if I could go back to a younger self, my 19-year-old self going into prison after I spent 2 decades in prison, and the first little while wasn't that good. So I would tell myself to practice like it was the game-winning shot every day of my life. Practice for the things that I see, because they will come to fruition. And it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than have an opportunity and not be prepared. So you got to prepare yourself.
Well, I think the preparations that we make while we're in prison really position us for those opportunities. And every day we are making decisions when we're inside with
Correct.
Regard to who do we hang out with, what are we doing with our free time, what are we thinking about, what are we focused on. To the extent we start thinking about how am I going to get out of here, we can start sowing seeds for more opportunities to open. At least that's what I experienced. Tell us about your initial adjustment and what caused you to start shifting your focus and when that started.
It was probably about 10 years into my career. And like I said, I did 20 years in 1 month. And a guy finally came in. He was a volunteer, and he told me that he was like, every time I speak to you, you're so intelligent. I don't understand why you have such a violent tendency. And I gave him the verbiage that was given to me. It's not actually the jargon of prison. I spoke to him and said, hey, well, it's not the point, it's the principle. This is where I'm at. I'm going to be the shark, and I'm going to be the lion. And he told me that, no, you're going to always be in prison. You're always going to be in prison. Even if they let you out, you're only going to go out there to visit. You're coming back with that attitude. And I think that kind of was like, he cared enough about me to kind of rattle my cage, and he was very intelligent. So, I think that's what did it with me.
So you say you were the shark in prison. You were the lion. Because I think we're speaking to a lot of guys who see themselves as a shark or a lion. Tell us a little bit about what that meant so that they can get the feel of saying, I'm listening to somebody who's like me, who's gone through what I've gone through. Give us that mentality before you tell us how you shifted.
Okay, well.
What were you doing for the first 10 years?
Well, I went into prison with a highly consummate boxing career. I had 33 amateur fights for the ABF, state and regional champion 3 years in a row. So I went in with the mentality that if I can't talk to you with my mouth, I will speak to you with my hands, because that's the only tool I had in my toolbox. It was a hammer. So I felt like if I was going to be into a hierarchy of bullying, I was going to be the toughest guy. And I'm sure, that people can relate to their subjugated, populations. But in mine, I was the shot caller. I'm going to be the shot caller in mine, so which is, if you're going to be good at life, be good.
And so what did that get you? You did 10 years living under that motto. And tell us a little bit about how did that mindset enter or prepare you for life? Did it prepare you for a life in prison, or did it prepare you for a life coming home?
Well, to quantify it, I lost 1,800 days gain time. So time that I earned, I lost 1,800 days gain time because of listening to other people and not what I knew. Intrinsically and in my heart, I knew I wasn't supposed to act like that. Like I knew I wasn't. But I'm going to be here, and this is what I'm going to do. So I lost 1,800 days gain time because of that. So it prepared me for a long, hard stay. Nothing good.
And if you had gotten that message, Michael, early on in your journey, you may have been able to save some of those 1,800 days. And that's what we're trying to convey right here to guys inside who are making decisions that are keeping them in the box. You were able to turn that ship around, but not until you did 10 calendar years, right? Tell us a little bit about what you did during those next 10 calendar years, how you were able to make that shift, and what did that shift look like, and what did it result in? I asked a lot of questions there, but just give us an insight.
Well, and you're right, because we all have been indoctrinated with what we know. So I didn't believe it was possible for me to have anything but the life I knew. And somebody said, hey, I'm going to give you a book a biography about Nelson Mandela. I want you to read this. And they gave me another book, and it was by Miku Keku, and they said, I want you to read this. It's theoretical physics. And I said, what am I going to read this for? I don't know anything about it. And the guy said, it wasn't that you're reading the knowledge. It's that you open your brain up for knowledge. And I owed it to that guy to read that book. And I think one book changed my life. Not one book, but that he cared enough to say, open your mind. And the first one I read was Nelson Mandela, a man that did 27 years and was a president,
Nelson Mandela had an enormous influence not only on you, but on, people all around the globe. He certainly influenced me through my journey, because what I saw in his messages is, regardless of how bad he was beaten down, and he wasn't in prison because of the bad decisions like I made, selling coke. He was in prison by a truly injustice, but he never had any hatred or animosity inside of him. He just always focused on how he could work toward building a better world. And I know that's a lot what you're doing now, Michael, but it didn't happen by accident. You spent those last 10 years preparing yourself, and I'd love to hear how you did that while you were in that very difficult environment.
Well, when you start putting knowledge in your brain, you wake up a creativity inside yourself that you don't know, because the more you read, the more you have expansive thoughts. The more expansive thoughts, the more vivid your dreams. And so you will start getting pulls from the inside. So I said, well, look, I'm going to prepare for my dream. Everybody was getting tattoos because I was a shot caller. That's what you're supposed to do. I didn't, because I told everybody I'm going to read the entire encyclopedia. I will be a businessman. And I trained just like I was, even if I wasn't, because I said, even if nothing ever comes to fruition, at least I get out of here and I don't have the stigma and stench of prison.
Mm-hmm. So you saw yourself as being successful, and then you sowed the seeds that helped you get there.
Faith without works is dead. So I saw the picture and I said, I want to be this. So everybody wants to be successful, but they don't want to put in the work. So I said, well, I was an athlete. I trained hard for that. I trained hard to be an athlete. I trained for the last minute stuff. So I said, well, isn't life the same thing? Don't we have to train and prepare for life? Because does it not knock us down and we got to get back up, and it knocks us down and we got to get back up? So I started preparing in the good times. And ironically, everybody that has a large measure of success goes through adversity. Everybody goes through adversity. It's what we become or what we do with that adversity. So whether it be prison, poverty, a death, It's what we do with what happens to us.
You know, and that's why we can offer a lot. Even if we've gone through prison, we can find that when we come back into society, there are a lot of people out here that are in a prison of their mind. They can't get over obstacles, they can't get over hurdles. But men like you, Michael, are able to help them overcome struggle by just sharing your story. And I know you're doing a lot of that, but before you're really able to start helping other people, you got to help yourself. And you helped yourself not only through prison, but the preparations you made by reading the encyclopedia, by rejecting, you know, the culture of confinement. And after that mentor gave you some guidance and preparing yourself for success, it's resulted in a better life for you when you finally got out after 20 years or 241 months of imprisonment. Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you coming back to society after 241 months in the box.
I know this may sound weird, but I had prepared myself so much that the day I got out, I met a lady in prison and I married her. The day that I got out, she can attest to this. She said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "I've got to get my license tomorrow and I've got to be to work the day after that." She said, "Well, you don't want to celebrate?" I said, "I have been stagnant for 20 years and in the running box for the last 10. I'm ready to run. I'm ready to make my dreams tangible." So when you prepare that much, that's what you feel like. You're not scared. It's liberating.
You know, a lot of people outside are going to want to ask questions about that because you just said something that's really exciting to guys in prison. You know, when you're living in prison and you're separated from women or separated from the people you love, the people who love you, you're just dreaming, saying, wow, I can't wait to have love in my life again. And you were able to find that even when you were locked up. Tell us a little bit about when that relationship, how that relationship started, and how did you find a woman to believe in you while you were still locked up?
It goes back to our beliefs, Michael, and I know that you know the power of you know your beliefs. And I met Jill while she was visiting someone, and we exchanged names because it was crowded in the visitor park, as they often are. And they set the guard made them sit with us for about 10 minutes and said, "Share a table until the next table comes." And I didn't speak to the lady other than cordially because they shared a table with us. But I went back for 30 days and I wrote a letter every day for 30 days. And I said, "I don't know what it is about you, but I know that you will be in my life." And on the 34th day, she wrote me and said, "You've been on my mind since I met you." And we've been together ever since, 15 years later.
Isn't that something? Out here in society, about 50% of the people that get married end up getting divorced, and you found the love of your life while you were locked up, and had the strength and the passion to keep that relationship growing, even not only through prison, but for 15 calendar years, which is just really awesome. That's just like me. You know, I just love hearing stories like that. So you got out, you got your driver's license, you didn't go out partying, you didn't hang out with the crowd that got you in trouble in the first place. Tell us what you were able to do.
Well, I was working at a place called Friendly's, and it's kind of like an ice cream parlor restaurant. And I listened to T.D. Jakes say one time that if you're working, do everything like you're not for the attention of man, but for the attention of God. Do it, and somebody will change. And I did that. So when I was waiting tables, I would speak to everybody like I know one day somebody's going to give me a job. And a lady came up to me and said, "I don't want you to work here anymore. I want you to work for me. Whatever you're making here, I will give you that weekly." And I took my best week and I said, "This is what I make." And she said, "And that's what I'll pay you weekly to come work for me." And I went. There again, your beliefs.
Well, it's not only your beliefs, it's the preparation, I think, that you made. I mean, you sowed some seeds that some people would say that's not going to really have any relationship to success. But I got to say, reading the encyclopedia while you're locked up in prison shows an extraordinary amount of commitment. Because a lot of people won't say, well, you know, that's not as fun as reading Sidney Sheldon or James Patterson. But James Patterson or Sidney Sheldon or Stephen King, although they're great writers, they might not position me for a job. But reading the encyclopedia, it does train your mind. It does get you thinking. And then people start seeing it because you start manifesting that while you're working, whether you're serving ice cream or you're pumping gas. A lot of guys will feel like that type of job is beneath me. But when you apply yourself, you open opportunities. That's what we try and teach through this program. And that's why I try to feature masterminds like you who didn't only talk about it, they were about it. And then tell us a little bit about what that job was when you went to work for that lady. What kind of job did you get?
It was an auto broker. It was auto transport broker. And so I go in there, don't know anything about computers. I'm 20 years behind the digital curve, but I knew, and I believed in myself so much that I said that I worked there 1 week, and I told them, I said, I will be the manager of this place in a year. And I became the general manager of that place in 8 months. I hired, I fired, I totally ran a multi-million-dollar company fresh out of prison within 8 months. Made $55,000 my first year out.
So $55,000. You were working at Friendly's, and give our audience, and you know that numbers matter inside. When you were working at Friendly's, how much were you making a week?
I was making $19,000 a year.
$19,000 a year. So get a load of this and look at, you can see the passion and the enthusiasm in Michael's presentation. He said he didn't look at $19,000 as any type of a belittling or diminishing. He said, wow, I'm grateful to be here. And while I'm here, I'm going to give 100% effort and energy. And then he gets a job to translate. That's a stepping stone. He takes that stepping stone. He goes to the next job. And with that next job, now he's making $55,000 a year, enormous responsibility, building his self-confidence and his credibility. And then I know that more opportunities open for him. And I'd love for you to tell our audience more about what those opportunities were, Michael.
Okay, well, as I went into everything, it's not what you make out. I want to say this to your audience because this is very, very important. When you go into a job, it's not what you make at that job. It's what that job makes you. So I get literally paid for you to train me to have a skill. And every man must have 10 skills. So I didn't have waiting as a skill. I didn't have phone sales as a skill. So you're paying me to acquire skills. And that's the mindset that your audience has to have.
You've got it without a doubt. I can tell you, I'm looking, so out here in society, I can tell you that we communicate a lot with texts. And I connected with Michael Justice. I don't remember how he found me, but when we started communicating, this is how he ends his text. Thanks you for your response. It's an epic way to start the day. Looking forward to making it a great one. I mean, he's always enthusiastic. He's always got that energy and that passion. You just want to say, man, I want to be a part of this guy's life. This guy's awesome. He's really making things happen. And not only is he making things happen for himself, but I know he's making it happen for teams that are around him. You told our audience that you started off in an entry-level position with this car company, and you eventually graduated as a general manager. I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about how your career advanced after you rose to general manager.
Well, when you go into a place and you have a belief about yourself, see, as a criminal, I didn't have the confidence that I could make it through life. I didn't think that success was tailored for my type of people. So then when I went, I totally transformed this business. I doubled their net worth in 1 year. They were in existence 12 years. I took that company over and doubled their net worth. And I said, if I can do that for you and your dreams, I can build mine, because they wouldn't let me take off and go talk at schools, and they wouldn't let me take away. And I'm passionate about that. So I said, well, and the only way I'm going to be able to do that is to open my own company. So I appreciated the opportunity, and I told them, look, it's time for me to open my own company and do my own thing and employ my own people. And
man, that is amazing. And how did you do that, Michael? How much did you have to raise? How did you get started? Give us a success story. Tell us what success looks like.
I'm going to tell you what success is: sweat and passion. When you make $55,000 a year and people say, Michael, you just got out of prison, and that is double the average income in America, and if you walk away from this, you truly are a crazy man. And I said, they said that when they said they were going to make the airplane or the internet or the light bulb. But if you don't believe in something, you will never have anything. So I stepped out and I did the same business, and fast forward, it was a struggle. Long nights, no money, but a belief that says, even in prison, I always believe in my darkest moment. I always internally believe that God will not put me through more than I can bear, and there's always a means of escape. And I always believed I would be better, always. So,
Frank Sinatra said you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I can tell you what, if you come out of prison, you make it in prison, you can definitely make it anywhere. You just got to have that attitude that says, I'm going to do whatever it takes to succeed. But the reality is you start sowing those seeds for success in prison. And
That's
the
right.
sooner you start, the more you're going to have accelerated success, like Michael Justice is describing right here. He had 10 years of preparation before he went to society. And those 10 years of preparation put him in position to not be, upset about an entry-level job at Friendly's, but rather to embrace it. And it helped him learn more and communicate more and exude that confidence that other people wanted to be around. Then he gets a job and he advances in 8 months to a high level of decision-making and power and authority within that organization, creating value for his employer, and then starts his own company. And that's really so exciting. But I know you do a lot more than just succeed in business right now, Michael. You're also very active in your community. And I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about what you're doing to sow these seeds of success in other people's hearts.
Well, let's say that we attract what we are. So it says that I will know you by your fruit. So if you have good heart, you will meet people that can influence you, like that lady come up to me and saying to work. Well, I'm working and a guy tells me, Michael, I chase money all my life. I don't know this guy from nobody. I meet him at Starbucks and just, he hears my name on a cup. He says, I chase money all my life. He said, it wasn't until I gave money to people that needed it more than myself that I caught up with it. And I thought about that, and I looked at his car, I looked at what he was dressed like, and I said, well, this guy's doing very well. So the flow of money, you have to give to the universe. You've got to give to, if you're covetous about something, that disrupts the flow of things. You can't hold on to it and squeeze it, because God wants to give you more, abundantly more. So if he gave me a blessing and I hold on to it, I've got to release my old blessings to get bigger ones. And that's just the way it is. So I go into a homeless shelter and I teach women how to, the basic computer skills that are necessary for a better chance at employment. So it's the best thing I've ever did. It's honestly, it makes me, it's the most empowering thing I've ever done. And I, not for nothing, but I made 97 this year. So, 6 years out of prison and I made 97 grand legally.
97 grand, but you did more than that. You've also employed people. You've helped other businesses. Tell us a little bit about that. How many people or is your organization employing, and what were your total revenues for your company? Because I know that if you made 97, your business had to pay more because you bought a lot of fuel, you paid a lot of tax. You've really contributed to society. How much does your business do?
We did like $500,000, like right at 490, like $500,000. I've got 5 people working for us. We're currently in the growth stage. We're developing an app to help our business, so a seamless connection. But it all goes, again, the more that you contribute to your local community and giving back, Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people, you will get what you want in life. And that's the truth. It's the truth. You've got to help people, man.
You've got to help people, but we've got to remember it, like every time you get on that airplane, and this is something I've written about because I've read it from other smart people. So when you get an airplane, that stewardess says, if you're traveling with a young child, you put that oxygen mask on yourself first, then your child, because if can't help yourself, you can't help somebody else. Correct. One of the things that Michael has done and that I'm so inspired by is that, first of all, he focused on sowing the seeds when he was in prison for success. Then he got out. He didn't go out and try and save the world first. He went to Friendly's and got a minimum wage job. And then he got himself up and he started hiring people, building, creating value for his employer, started his own job. And now, 6 years after prison, he's making about $100,000 a year. That is an amazing story. That's why he's a mastermind. But it's not only the $100,000 that he's brought to his own family. He did $500,000 in business. What does that mean? He's paid taxes that have funded our roads and bridges. He's bought gasoline for local businesses. He's hired 5 people who are earning a living. Why? Because he started sowing seeds when he was in prison. And now he controls his own destiny, and he goes out, doesn't just live it all up. He takes time to go into a homeless shelter and help other people who need his wisdom. He's spending time on a Friday afternoon, a busy day in his business. Said when I reached out to him and said, hey, I want to create this video for people in prison, he didn't hesitate. We've been working through this for hours to get this thing right, just so we could bring you a story like Michael Justice. And I'm just so grateful to you, Michael, for sharing this story with our brothers in prison, because we all need to learn from leaders like you.
And likewise, and see, I'm one of the things I want to commend you about is because, Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile, nobody knows that you can reach that limit because we've set, Les Brown says it's not that people aim too high and missed, it's that they aim too short and made it. You have to see people that can succeed like yourself, like myself, to make you know that you can dream. It's unlimited. If you put forth work, you will get to the mark. But you can't say that I want it today. You don't plant a seed, and you use this, quite frequently about your seeds. You don't plant a seed for an orange tree and go out there and pick fruits tomorrow. You water it, you talk to it, you wait for the seasons. You've got to put in time.
The funny thing, when I tell that story, and I use that same story about planting seeds and you're going to grow fruit, I said, when you plant a seed, what do you got to do next? You got to water it, right? What else you got to do? They say you got to put fertilizer on it, right? What's fertilizer made of, right? We know what fertilizer is made of. It's made of, I don't want to say a bad word because staff might get it, but say manure. You got to grow through a lot of manure before you can start eating that fruit. Michael's done it. I'm doing it. We want our brothers and sisters in prison to do it. That's why I'm committed to making as much of this story as I can, to share this story, because the one common theme in everybody I present here is they are all saying, my success started with the decisions I started making in prison. That's what this is about. And just so grateful to you for sharing your story with us, Michael. Is there anything last words you'd want to say to some of the people we're communicating to in prison?
I really do. I want to say that regardless of where you're at, if you don't believe, you've got to believe. See, if you look at where you're at is the decisions that you made 6 months, 10 months, a year ago, 5 years ago. It doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. What you can do, that's a sum of yesterday's thoughts. But we can change our thoughts today so that 5 years from now, the sum of those thoughts will be a lot different. And if you believe it, don't look at where you're at. Look at where you're going. Look at where you're going in your heart. If you know that you've got it, you put in that work. Don't say you want it, but you don't give it. No, you don't water it like you just used. Don't go out there and think that you're going to grow and pick those fruits if you don't water it. You've got to. And if you believe that, no matter where you're at, you're going to be successful.
There's wisdom from a man who did 20 years in prison, Michael Justice. I want to thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. You want to reach out to Michael, I'm going to throw his email right up there on the banner above this video. And I just want to thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Y'all, you're a good guy, and you're an awesome mentor to these people. If they listen to you, they can totally transform their paradigm and have a great life.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
God bless you, sir.